Cycle Jerks.
Hey, get out of the road, dummy.
Cycle Jerks Podcast.
All right, welcome everybody to Cycle Jerks Podcast. Today's guest is Dan Hughes. Dan is a gravel racing Hall of Famer, the only four-time winner of Unbound 200, and even did so as part of a tandem effort. We're going to talk about that, I'm sure. He also won Gravel Worlds and the Trans Iowa, the 13th version of that one, and many more to his credit. Currently, Dan is a full-time photographer and content producer for Lifetime Events. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, man. So, holy smoke. So I don't know if you know, but I'm actually going to be participating in my first ever Unbound race.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you've done so much.
What distance are you doing?
I'm doing the XL.
Oh, wow. Oh, the big
Yeah.
one right from the get-go. Nice.
Yeah. I'm not very smart, so.
Well,
But
the plus of the XL is that oftentimes at Unbound, people are like, is it a north year? Is it a south year? The route switches every couple of years, and the north roads are a different character and flavor than the southern roads. And so people are always very concerned about whether it's going to be a north year or a south year. As an XL participant, you just get them all. You get north and south. There's no mucking about whether or not you're going to get chunky, gravelly, loose climbs, or you're going to get ripping winds. You just get it all. So welcome. You're going to enjoy it.
Well, I'm going to get my money's worth. That's for sure. I just hope I finish. I've never done anything. I've done some big, I did like a 270-mile road ride, though.
Yeah.
And that was with like 18,000 feet. So similar, but still gravel, I'm sure you could speak to it. You've obviously done it a bunch. Have you done the XL as well?
I have. I did it one time. When they launched that event, the very first iteration of it, they did a neat thing in that they invited 34 people to partake in kind of the test event the first year. And
Okay.
34 was a significant number because that was the number of original participants in the DK 200 back in 2006. So
Oh,
they
okay.
wanted
That's
to
cool.
harken back to that numerology, if you will, and have 34 people do it. And I lined up primarily because I felt like I knew the area, and honestly, I felt like it's not possible to go fast for that long. I thought, oh,
Right.
these we're going to be able to go slow. And I was at a period in my cycling where I was really anxious to go much slower, and probably because I couldn't go any faster, so I needed to find slower people to ride with. And I was heavily chagrined to find out that no, they go just as fast. They just go a lot further. And I
Wow.
remember riding out of town, breathing through my eyeballs, thinking, well, there's no way they can sustain this pace. And yes, they could. And so at about mile 170 of that first one, I was out on the high plains of Kansas, which, the Flint Hills, if you've never been here, it's a very remote area. A lot of people think Kansas is dead flat, but there are some hills in this part of the country,
Yeah.
and it's very exposed. And this a thunderstorm, ironically, we're under a tornado watch or something right at the moment. But at this
Perfect.
moment, there was a storm rolling in, and there was lightning all around, and it was about mile 170, and every one of these Unbound or DK events I've done, there's always been a crux point where I really wanted to quit. It wasn't fun anymore, and there was still a long way to go. And so for that initial version of the XL, that came at mile 170, and I found myself on this kind of open, exposed high plain with lightning all around, and I thought, this is just dumb. I'm the tallest thing out here, and I mean, at least I'm not straddling a steel bike and acting as a de facto lightning rod. But
Yeah.
I don't think carbon is really any less. It's not going to save me. The
Yeah.
rubber underneath my wheels isn't going to save me. So I pulled the plug on that very first one and instantly regretted it, and came back the next year for a revenge lap. But my mantra that entire year was just get it done, don't suffer, just keep moving forward. And so, yes, I have done one XL. And as soon as I crossed the line, I was like, never again. I'm never doing it again. So I've held I've held true to that motto. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great time. You're gonna love it.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
There might be some crying. Uh, man, so what a career. You were in on the early days of gravel. I usually like to find out like when did you get bit with the bike and the bug? Like when you were a kid growing up. I mean, how did you get involved with bikes?
Yeah, I picked up the bicycle midway through high school. So that was,
Okay.
1919, 1920, just after the close of the First World War. Um, we, of course, didn't call it the First World War because we called it the Great War because we thought there would never be another one like it. But um, yeah, 1,000 years ago, I was in high school and
Yeah.
I was a runner, and I had a sibling who was going to run a marathon, and I took great umbrage with that because I was the runner in the family. And so I signed up to do a marathon. And at the age of 15, I ran the Macy's Marathon in Kansas City. And it sucked. It was terrible. I hated every minute of it. I remember
Yeah.
yelling at my parents on the side of the road, like, because they were showing up like every 3 miles or something. And I was like, if you
Yeah.
want me to complete this thing, you got to show up more.
Oh,
So,
re-
yeah,
every 3 miles wasn't enough.
no, I needed constant support the entire way,
Yeah.
almost as if they should have run it with me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a buddy that was into riding bikes, and so I picked up a bike in high school, and gravel hadn't yet been existed or had invented then. So a lot of what I did, because I was a distance runner, was distance cycling, and so I almost missed actually my high school graduation because I was doing a 200-mile road ride in Missouri, the Black Rock 200 or Arrow Rock 200, excuse me. Um, but I was just out riding my bike and having fun, and it seemed like the perfect conveyance for getting out and exploring and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I started
Yeah.
riding in high school, and as the bike industry came up with mountain bikes and then cyclocross bikes and every kind of bikes, I just liked bikes. So yeah, and then the gravel side of it, I was living in Lawrence. I lived in Lawrence, Kansas, the home of the University of Kansas for over 3 decades, and we have a lot of good gravel up in Lawrence. And we would go out and ride these 100-mile century ride of gravel every fall. And the multiplier I've always felt on gravel is that a mile on the road is worth 1 mile on the road. A mile on gravel is worth 1.5 miles on the road, and a mile of mountain biking is worth 2 miles on the road. So these 100-mile gravel rides were kind of analogous in my mind to riding 150 miles on the road, and they were challenging and they were long enough that you really went through some peaks and valleys and came out the other side having experienced something transformational. So it was the twistiest and turniest roads, the coolest roads around because they weren't paved, and they would go up strange little hills and around tight corners that nobody would take their car down. And we were riding one fall, and I heard that a couple guys down in Emporia were going to do a 200-mile gravel ride through the Flint Hills, and I thought, well, that's just nuts.
Yeah.
And we stopped. I think we stopped for a regroup point on our fall century, and would have had to have been 2003 or 2000. Well, probably 2005 because the first one was in 2006, and
Yeah.
I said I'm going to sign up for that thing, and that's the when you vocalize it, then you're committed. You can't get out of it without shame. So I
I'm
went
going
down
through
to
that right now.
yeah. I mean, I've since come to realize that shame isn't all that bad. But
Yeah.
yeah, I lined up with 33 other people for the very first one in Emporia, and
Yeah.
none of us knew what we were in for. There was a real pro there, Garth Prosser, who has been a legend of alt cycling for forever,
Hmm.
and he showed up on his mountain bike, and I had a kind of a custom built gravel bike that was a little bit faster because it certainly wasn't physical prowess that allowed me to hang with him. And we took off together, and I remember distinctly that within 25 miles of that, it was just down to me and him riding together. And neither one of us knew how fast to go or how to pace or how to do nutrition or any of that stuff. And
Yeah.
yeah, we just got through it and finished. And ironically, yeah, when he finished second that year. I got lucky and got away from him, and he finished second. And as he rolled in, he said, "If I ever try to do this again, you can just shoot me in the head right here because I don't know." He was like, I don't want to do this ever again.
Yeah.
And a few years ago, when my wife and I, Paulina, were doing it on the tandem, which is a whole other story,
Oh my gosh.
we came across Garth, and Garth was out doing his must have been 15th or 16th Unbound 200, and we're just rolling along, and I'm like, Garth, what are you doing? He's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know why I'm here. So there's got to be something magnetic about um, just the physicality of riding gravel, and then the transformational nature of it, and then the shared experiences that you have with other riders that turns people into evangelists
Yeah.
for gravel.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's quite a story. I mean, at the time in 2006, I'm trying to think like just what, I mean, there probably wasn't very many tires even for that type of, for
No,
like a converted
no.
cross bike or something, right? Everything was at the UCI standard probably, right?
Yep.
The 33s.
Yeah.
Is that what you
There's
were?
no so it's ironically there was a guy, a curmudgeon who may be known to you, but Bruce Gordon,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
the most curmudgeonly, rest in peace, great guy. He was a bit of a curmudgeon. I think we could all agree on that.
Oh yes.
Um,
Yes, we can.
he had the Bruce Gordon Rock and Road tire, 700 by 42, and I'm sure he
Oh
at
man.
some point bought whatever the minimum order was from Cheng Xin over in Taiwan and had them built and sent over. And so at the time, I was working at a bike shop that I would eventually come to own and then eventually sell. But I was in a period where I was like, well, I got to have a new bike every year to keep my motivation high and be excited about things. And so I was
Sure.
really looking for a cyclocross bike. And at that time, the only really cyclocross bikes that were available were either a Guerciotti or an Elan, which were pretty much the same bike. They were kind of a screwed and glued European cyclocross bike, which would only take the standard 33 mil or smaller cyclocross tire, which is standard for cyclocross.
Yeah.
Um, or you could get a Rock Lobster, which had better clearance and kind of a sloping top tube. But I was I was a purist. I didn't want a sloping top tube. I wanted a horizontal top tube because that's what all my steel road bikes were like. And so I got in touch with a guy named Brent Steelman who built bikes out of Redwood City, California. And
Yeah.
he had two models of cyclocross bike. He had a cyclocross, what he called the cyclocross, horizontal top tube, and the stays and the fork would accommodate just a 33 mil tire was the max you could get into that. But then he also had this model called the Psychocross, which had a sloping top tube and it had a fork and stays that were designed to fit that 700 by 42 mil Bruce Gordon Rock and Road tire. And I said, well, I really want the main frame from the cyclocross, and I want the stays and the fork from the cyclocross. So he built me up this kind of Frankenstein bike that would take the 42 mil tires, front and rear, but had a horizontal top tube. And that was the bike that I rode for the first several editions of DK. And it was my
Okay.
standard gravel bike. And it was interesting because it was because of, so this is super boring, but the cyclocross frame was designed to be used with mountain bike gears. And so the stays flared out very, very quickly from the bottom bracket
Oh,
to accommodate that big
right.
tire. And I wanted to run road cranks. And so that meant that those components weren't really compatible. I had to use a custom fill wood bottom bracket to get the crank very far outboard so it wouldn't hit the chain stays. Um, and I have no idea if your listenership is mega nerds or not. I probably have turned off half the audience
No,
already. But
we tend to nerd out from time to
okay.
time. Yeah, we've
Okay.
had a lot of frame builders on, and yeah,
Yeah.
we go down that road for sure. Q
Okay.
factor be damned, basically, is what
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
saying. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And
yeah,
chainline was who cared about chainline? But
yeah,
yeah, that bike saw me through a bunch of really great rides, and it was on ironically fat tires for the day. So
yeah,
I went back to skinny tires for a while, and then I came back as we all did to fat gravel tires. But
yeah.
yeah.
What in that first year in 2006, of the other riders, how many were on drop bar bikes? Was it mostly mountain bikes or?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Garth was on his mountain 26-inch wheel mountain bike, Cannondale mountain bike. It might have been a lefty. I'd have to look and
Okay.
see. Might
Yeah.
have just been a regular old head shock one, but 26-inch wheels. I mean, I this is going to sound like hyperbole, but I think he brought a knife to a gunfight. That bike of mine was just so much faster,
Right.
and that was the difference. So,
As long as you can keep air in
um,
the tires, you probably
yeah,
got
yeah,
huge.
which yeah, and that's it was inner tube days and cantilever
Hmm.
brakes, and I think there was a set of Mavic Cerium wheels on there because that was the height of technology in those days. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that was part of the charm of that particular race at that time was that it was as much adventure as it was pure athleticism. Like the route finding part of it was part of it. Like you would meet with them the night before, and they would give you at the meetup. They would tell you the first 50 miles of the course and give you a map for that and a cue sheet, no GPS. And then you would ride to the first checkpoint, and they would tell you what the next 50 miles were going to be, and so on and so forth. So you never really knew where you were going,
Got it.
and that led to some adventure. But yeah, many an Unbound slash DK was decided by who got the least number of flats.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. I can imagine. I've been, I'm sure Yuri, and
yeah,
he's a local guy. And
yeah.
so we've been chatting about tire selection. I've been running these Vittoria Torreno dries
Mm-hmm.
in the 47s,
Yep.
but I haven't really been having good success with those tires in general. They just lose a lot of air and the sidewalls are bleeding. So I just switched to some 50 Ramblers
Mm-hmm.
in the 60 TPI. And I've used those, and I haven't used the 50s in the past, but I've used Ramblers in the past, and they've proven to be pretty durable. So I'm hoping that'll be a good tire for the course.
Yeah, that's a popular choice out here for sure. I think
Yeah.
it'll be fine.
So question for you, when they first launched the XL, and it was kind of a catch-22 of sorts, right? It's like an honor to be in that group of the first, but then also I'm thinking, man, they got 34 people to sign up for. Because I mean, back then, there's nothing. I mean, there's still to this day, there's very few events like that, that you can even find.
Yeah,
So at the time, was that just like, what are we doing here?
yeah. I mean, it's amazing to me that as gravel has evolved, and I'm just going to say this from the perspective of this year's XL has I would say as many hitters in it as the
Yeah,
200 does. I mean, you've got in the 350 this year on the men's side, you've got Lachlan Morton, you've got um, uh, who else am I thinking of? Oh, just and then on the women's side, you've got Lael, you've got Heather Jackson, you've got Lawrence Tandem.
yeah,
There's a bunch of really strong riders that are now keying off these really long distances, and it almost harkens back to me for me to that time when we were doing 100 miles and 200 miles seemed impossible,
right.
and now 350, 200 seems like that's just standard, and 350 is where the new frontier is. So I know
Yeah,
that when they developed the 350, the XL, part of the deal was that they wanted to kind of go back to the days of self-support, no outside, no team, no crews, no that choose your own adventure sort of exploration sort of thing,
yep,
and I understand fully why in the early days of DK or Unbound, you could only meet your crew at the midway checkpoint. So the first and third checkpoints, you were on your own with whatever you could get from a local convenience store. Casey's is what we have around here.
hmm,
And it was only at that midway checkpoint that you could really resupply. And over the years, I think quite wisely, they decided, well, we're going to get more families to come. We're going to get more heads in beds. People are going to come. We're going to make this more of a family affair if we can get people to be able to see their loved ones at more than just the midway checkpoint. And
all
so
right.
doing so really changed the dynamic of that 200-mile race because now instead of figuring out, okay, what do I need for the next 100 miles? It could be, what do I need for the next 50 miles? And I'm going to throw a spare pair of wheels in the car and I'm going to have a fast pit stop. And, it really changed how that race was run. And so the 350, I think, harkened back to those days of self-sufficient, uh, finding your own way through whatever you can get at a Casey's, and not to the point of that sort of ideal has been around. I mean, Jim and Joel, the original founders of DK slash Unbound, took their inspiration from Mark Guitar Ted Stevenson in Trans Iowa, and Mark, for throughout the 14 years that he did that event, really was in that ethos of no GPS, only cue sheets. You got to be self supported, and his events were always in that 300 plus mile range. So
Yeah.
I think they took some inspiration from that and tried to get back to those roots. It'll be interesting to see what the star power of Lackland and Lawrence Tandem and Lael, of course,
Right.
bring to that, because I think that'll be an interesting race to watch for sure. And for myself, there were many, many times during my one successful XL that I cursed out loud the name of Jim Cummins and the organizers of XL of DK, because and of course nobody can hear you. That's the beauty of
Right.
either
Yeah.
space or the Flint Hills. No one can hear you scream.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it was a day for sure. So
Yeah. Well,
I'll
now
be looking.
but you also did the Trans Iowa, right? Which is a similar type of event.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
was 2017. The I had done well at DK, and I'd gone to Lincoln and done well at Gravel Worlds, and so I really wanted to go back to the figuratively the place where it all began, at least for the Midwest, which would be Trans Iowa.
Yeah.
And Mark is Guitar Ted, Mark Stevenson, Gravel Cycling Hall of Fame
Yep.
inaugural class member. Um, he is a pioneer in many regards, and uh, I wanted to go, and he ran his events very much his way, even when uh, I thought of him quite honestly as like the Henri de Grange of gravel, which is to say that the guy that invented the Tour de France wanted to invent a race that was so hard that only one person would finish, and that would be the winner. And I
Right.
think Mark really tried to uphold that ideal and have an event that was so hard and so self-supported that not very many people would sign up, and even fewer would finish. So
Yeah.
going back and doing that event and hoping to do well was certainly high on my list, my bucket list. And that particular year, he always kept his fields to 150 or less. And that particular year, I think 150 people signed up, 85 people got there, saw the forecast, and then overnight, 10 of them skulked off and were for better pastures smartly. And so only 75 of us started, and only 6 of us finished. And that
Yeah.
was, I'm sure,
Man.
in Mark's eyes, the perfect race, because it had tested pretty much everybody there. So I was in a interesting place in my life at that point personally, going through a separation, and
Oh, wow.
I was in probably much of it was just kind of in a fugue state of not having to think about anything else in my life and just pedal,
Hmm.
which that probably helped me in that moment, quite honestly. But
Yeah.
yeah, 339 miles for that one, I think. And I don't believe the temperature ever got above 40 degrees, and it rained
Oh,
for the last 20. And, you know, Mark, Mark doesn't do a reroute. So
uh,
if the course says you're going 3 miles through a marsh, and it's a marsh, you're going
oh,
3 miles through a marsh.
man.
But one of the most gratifying things I've ever done on a bike, for sure, even though I hated every minute of it. It was definitely type 2.5 fun, I think. There's type 1 fun, where it's fun when you're doing it, type 2 fun, where it's not fun when you're doing it, but afterwards you're like, I'd do that again. And then
Yeah.
type 3 fun is like, it's not fun and you're done. You're not going to never fucking do that again. It's
Yeah.
probably in 2.5 range, if I had to guess. So,
Okay. Well, the temps and the wet, boy, those two combinations with the type of endurance, the distance and everything, man, that sounds terrible. I remember I had a colleague of mine that did it, and I had never even heard of such a thing. I was just like I grew up racing BMX, and then I started
Mhm.
racing downhill, and like, there's so many niches in the sport of cycling, and I just wasn't tapped into the endurance thing at all. And I remember I was talking to him. He's like, "Yeah, I'm doing the Trans Iowa." I'm like, "Oh, cool. What's that?" And then he starts laying it out for me, and I just even couldn't even believe it. I'm like, "Why would you do that?" And
Yeah.
he's just like, "Oh, it's the ultimate test, man. It's just like, hard man points and all this stuff." And I was just like, "Man, I don't get it at all." And here we are, fast forward all these years later, and now I'm doing some silly event that's similar to it. But
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
and I
hopefully it
was,
won't be as cold or as wet, but
well, it's, I can't, I mean, there's almost no chance it'll be as cold. And, the one thing I will say about Mark versus the organizers of XL would be that, Mark eschewed GPS. You couldn't have GPS even when GPS was around.
yeah,
And he obviously wouldn't reroute anything. And at least the folks at XL were like, okay, if you go down that road, if you go down Headwaters Road like they were going to last year, there's a good chance that you're going to rip your derailleur off, and we're going to have nobody finish. And Mark
yeah,
had events, had version editions of Trans Iowa where nobody finished, nobody went fast enough to make the first checkpoint, and
yeah, yeah,
that's a tough thing to market to people who obviously need to train. And there's a lot of sacrifices that go along with
for sure.
being able to
Yeah,
do these big events. And so um, yeah, I've always kind of felt like at least at XL they give you a GPS, where you're going, you can make some better planning decisions, and they're not going to deliberately try to destroy your day. The event itself is tough enough, it's epic enough as it is.
yeah,
It doesn't necessarily need extra layers of drama on top of it. But be that as
yeah,
it may, I
right,
was, that was part of the reason that I went to Trans Iowa, was to do it Mark's way and see if I
right,
could do it.
right.
So not
Yeah,
do it.
I think a lot of
So
people in the endurance space are always seeking, the next big challenge, and you just keep pushing until, I mean, hopefully you never find the ceiling, but
yeah,
um, it's you tapped into something that we talked about quite a bit on the show, is the psychological side of it and the benefits of cycling. You were going through this tough time in your life personally, and to get out on the bike and do something really stinking hard where all you could think about was pedaling, it's really beneficial. And we see a lot of people, in endurance sports in general, you see a lot of people that have had really tough personal lives or have gone through addiction, and then they find endurance sports, and it's a gateway to a healthier and happier lifestyle for a lot of people. And um, yeah, it's just something that gets looked over a little bit from time to time with, but, a lot of times you talk to like normal people, they're like, what are you nuts? Why
yeah.
would you do this? And it's like, yeah, kind of, maybe I am a little bit nuts, but it's all part of it. But
I know
what
for
oh,
me
go ahead.
it's I was just going to say it's the little bit nuts is of riding a bike is probably preferable to the lot of bit nuts if I didn't ride my bike, right? And
Right.
so it's
Yep.
all on a scale of some sort. And man, if I wasn't able to go out and just kind of let it go,
Right.
I'd be a different person. So that's, I think,
Yeah.
true for lots of folks.
No doubt. No
Yep.
doubt. The bike is your friend, your therapist, your church, it's
Yep.
a
Yep.
lot of serves a lot of different functions for us. And
Yep.
yeah, just grateful to be able to continue doing it.
Yep.
So, of all the ultra type of events that you've done, what would you say that Trans Iowa one is that the toughest one?
Yeah. I mean, for sure. I've got, um, 11 finishes as a solo rider at DK/Unbound. I got one tandem finish there. I have the 350, several Rebecca's Private Idahos, a
Hmm.
few gravel worlds, but just in terms of sheer distance and the lunacy of it, that
Yeah.
has to be the toughest one. I mean, I've the only two times I've ever had hallucinatory episodes have been on a bike, and
Uh-huh.
I guess I should take more LSD, or I should take LSD period. But um, when you're riding out there in the middle of the night in somewhere in Iowa, and uh, you see a blue dog running backwards across the, road in front of you. That's an experience, So,
Uh-huh.
um,
Holy
yeah,
smokes.
it's definitely the toughest for sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Well, okay, so maybe tough in another way would be doing the 200 on a tandem with your wife. That
Yeah.
sounds like a divorce waiting to happen.
Well, and they say that tandems are divorce machines.
Oh,
I
yes.
prefer to think of them as relationship accelerators,
Oh.
meaning if you're going to get a divorce, it's going to happen faster if you have a tandem, um, or if you're going to stay together forever, it's going to happen faster if you're on a tandem. So,
Hmm.
um, Paulina and I, Paulina is a five-time finisher of Unbound 200. She and another woman here in Emporia go back and forth about who has the fastest known time for Unbound 200. There's a whole debate about different courses, different lengths. Is it just the time? I won't bore your listeners with the
All
intricacies
right.
of how that's all shaking out. And frankly, I don't want to go there because I'll get in trouble with both of them. But my point is
Yeah.
this: she she's a badass, and we ride the tandem. And when she was going for her fifth Unbound 200 finish, I at some point in my Unbound career decided that there should be an award for people that had finished more than one of these events. Just a fortitude award. And so, taking a cue from the Leadville big buckle that you get there for doing 10 of those, 1,000 miles of Leadville, I convinced the organizers of Unbound to create this chalice, this Weiss goblet. It's a 32-ounce Weiss goblet. I call it the Gravel Grail, but it's
Hmm.
the 1,000 Mile Award, and you get it when you do five Unbound 200s. And Paulina was up for her fifth, and because I was in charge of producing the Grails, I had one produced with a question on it as opposed to the actual Grail itself, and
Uh-huh.
met her at the finish line, and she crushed it. She was 13 hours and 9 minutes or something,
Whoa.
ripping fast.
Yeah.
And she came across the line, and I presented her with this special Grail that had a question on it, and she, of course, uh, thought she was just getting her Grail a day early, and
Uh-huh.
and I don't want to put too much of story into this, but essentially, we had talked about the next step in our relationship, and we had talked about how an appropriate way to propose would be. And she had said, "Don't ask me in front of a bunch of people." And I was like, "Well, that kind of leaves out the actual gravel grail ceremony that I was going to propose at." So
All
I'll just
right.
pivot. I'll pivot to the finish line, and I'll ask her in the finishing chute of Unbound. And of course, I couldn't keep my mouth shut, and I told all of her friends. And so all of her friends were lining the finishing chute, and
Oh
she came
man.
she came in, she got off her bike, she was super excited, as she should be. And more than anything, I think it's important to remember that that particular day was about her fifth finish and her effort on the bike, and the proposal was just a sideline thing. That was
Sure.
not important. But she got off her bike, and she started working the rope line. She was All her friends were there. She was working it all the way around. Five of my
Yeah.
photographer friends were there taking pictures. Everybody knew it was happening except for her.
Oh
And
man.
I handed her the Grail, and she's like, "Woo! I got my Grail!" And I said, "You maybe want to take a look at that, read
Yeah.
that." And she read it, and that's when I got down on one knee and I proposed. And ultimately, the good side of that was that she was severely dehydrated, malnourished, really just wrecked from her effort, and clearly not thinking with all of her capacities. And so when I asked her, she said yes, which was a mistake in a lot of ways.
Uh-huh.
But in that moment, she said to me, "We should ride the tandem next year." And
Wow.
I did not fully understand how dehydrated and lack of rational thinking I was. And so I said, "Yeah, that sounds like a great idea." So
Yeah.
we rode the tandem, and I was not into it. I was not looking forward to that at all. And
Yeah.
I can find start line photos actually of me scowling, and just clearly grumpy bear, sort of
Uh-huh.
thing. And so that particular year was another mud year. Our mutual friend Yuri, who is probably the most charismatic winner of Unbound ever.
Yeah.
Uh, Won in what we all called the mud year because it was the first year that it was hike a bike for 10 miles or more.
Oh man.
And Kansas mud is, especially if you get on the minimum maintenance roads, Kansas mud is very much peanut butter mud. It sticks to your tires. You get 30 feet into a minimum maintenance road and your wheels just don't roll anymore. And so in that 2015 year, Yuri persevered through all that and came away with a win, which was epic. And I came across a photo actually today of him winning it and or in during the winning effort, and it's just such an iconic photo that I had to get it for him. But
Oh
um,
man.
my point is this: we had mud when P and I did it on the tandem as well, and that actually was a godsend for me because I feel like, first of all, I would say that Paulina is arguably the most perfect stoker in the world. She is a compact little powerhouse back there that is always ebullient and upbeat and joyful. And it's the perfect counterbalance to my circus bear on a bike
Uh,
kind of physique on the front,
uh-huh.
and always very dour and thinking about what could go wrong. So together we make the perfect yin yang. But and you're riding along, and all of a sudden, magically underneath your arm appears a gel that has already been opened for you, and
Oh man.
the imperative to you need to eat this
Yeah.
because she knows what's going to happen if I don't. But we soldiered through there, and because we had to get off and walk for 10 miles that year,
Oh my gosh.
it really allowed me to not be on the gas the entire time because had we not had some sort of mechanical, like physical impediment, some hurdle to going quickly, I would have burned all my matches very early, and it would have been ugly. But we got through it, and by virtue of the fact that all the smart people stopped. I turned to her at one point because we were in the middle of this deluge near Hamilton, Kansas. It's pouring rain, there's lightning, and it arguably was just dumb to keep riding. And smart
Hmm.
people were like, "This is dumb. I'm not doing this anymore." And I turned to her and I said, "This is good for us because we're not smart, or at least I'm not, and we'll keep going."
Uh,
And I will say also that so we won the tandem category that year. So I had won on my own 4 times, and then we won the tandem category, all based on the fact that Paulina is strong as hell and kept us moving forward,
yeah.
and also based on the fact that the really fast tandem, which was a male tandem from Holland, the world champions actually, they have the rainbow stripes on their sleeves.
Oh wow.
Uh, they were in the para category, so they were in a separate category. They cleaned our clock by hours, but they were in the para category and they won that. And then we won the tandem category and came down Commercial Street, which, as you'll find, it is. I would imagine it's what Tour de France riders feel the Champs Elysees is like.
Oh wow.
It's
Yeah.
different. There's no Arc de Triomphe, and it doesn't have
Yeah.
that kind of pageantry. But when you're coming down Commercial Street after having ridden 350 miles, or even 200 miles, or 100 miles, it is the world's best finish line. So we came down that finish line. We had no brakes left on the tandem because they'd all been eaten away by mud all day, and we finished. And she said, we should do the XL on the tandem next year. And I said, sure, yeah, let's do that. And we
You guys were meant for each other.
well, and the interesting point of fact is that we said, yeah, we'll do that. And we signed up. And then I had a career change and ended up working for Lifetime. And
Yeah.
I remember being on a ride in maybe January, shortly after I'd gotten the job with Lifetime. And Ben Sachs, the race director at that time, was on the ride, and we were doing some training ride up around Cottonwood Falls or something like that. And he offhandedly said, "Well, you work for Lifetime now. You'll never get to ride the event again. You'll have to work." And
Oh.
that's a truism,
Yeah.
when you're part of the organizing, it's you don't get a chance to ride the event,
Yeah.
which is interesting given that when the event started, when Jim and Joel founded it, their intention was to keep it small enough that they could each alternate as race director. So one would be able to ride one year and then the other would be able to ride the next year. But as the event went from 34 people to 4,000, it was just, if you work for Lifetime, you've got to work the event.
Yeah.
I seeing that as an opportunity to not have to ride 350 miles on a tandem. I love Paulina, but it just
Yeah.
didn't sound like fun.
Yeah.
Um, I was like, you know what, Ben, that's a great idea. I should make sure that they know I'm available to empty trash cans or do whatever is necessary on race
Uh-huh.
weekend so that I have a legitimate excuse to say to Paulina, sorry, babe, I would love to, but I got to work. And I ultimately said, sorry, babe, I've got to work, with the idea that she would say, uh, well, okay, if you're not going to ride 350 with me, then I'm just going to bump down. I've done the 200 5 times. I'm just going to bump down to the 100. The 100 is still a huge challenge, but it doesn't eat up all of your day and maybe some of the next day, and you can do it, and then you can be down there for the party on Commercial Street.
Yeah.
And I thought that's what she was going to say, but what she said was, well, I don't need you. I'm just going to do the 350 on my own.
Oh,
And
wow.
so she signed up for the 350 last year and got out there, and it was a tough go. Her stomach gave her some problems at about mile 140, and I happened to be out there shooting pictures and was in the area, and she called for a rescue, and I tried to. We spent an hour. You'll come to love the Alma convenience store in your 350 attempt. I believe the 350 riders go by there again this year, and
Okay.
we sat there for an hour trying to get her to stomach to come back around, and ultimately she wasn't didn't really want to continue. Her stomach was she was over it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she said to me, she said, "Look, I either go home with you now or I go home with somebody else later." And the way she said it, it didn't
Uh-huh.
I didn't like it. Didn't
Yeah.
sound didn't
Doesn't
sound
sound
good to
good.
me.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And so I trundled her into the car and drove her back to town. And like anybody that signs up for one of these things and then for whatever reason has to pull the plug, she was immediately like, I'm coming back. I'm coming back next year for a revenge lap. So
Okay.
when you're out there this year and you see a petite mother of two on her S Works Diverge with her aero bars, and
Uh-huh.
she looks strikingly like Sofia Gomez Vichafane. But
Okay.
yeah, you will be lining up next to Lachlan Morton and um, Lawrence Tendam and Lael Wilcox and Heather Jackson and Paulina Batiste,
All
the
right.
the
Look
badass
out.
of Emporia. So yeah,
Yeah.
she's a good person to ride with. Terrible draft. There's
Okay.
nothing
Yeah.
nothing to
Right.
sit behind, but yeah, she's going back for her revenge lap this year, and I am not going to. I'm deliberately going to ride. I think if I do anything in coverage for the XL, I'm going to ride my motorcycle, and that way I won't be able to rescue her at all, and she'll go home with somebody else. But ultimately, she'll come home on her own. So
Something tells me she'll be just fine.
yeah,
She's
yeah,
got a lot of hard miles in her.
yeah,
And
she's
yeah.
and she's focused. And I think a lot of XL is it's certainly you have to have fitness and you have to have your equipment and nutrition dialed, but it is a lot of mental
Yeah.
keep moving forward because it is there are multiple in it an event like the 200 where for me mile 120 to 160 was when it was like okay 120 you're at least 6 7 hours for me 6 7 hours in you've been at
Yeah.
it a while and then you
Yeah.
look at oh I got 80 more miles to go that's at least 4 5 more hours no thanks but
Mm-hmm.
if you get to 160 then you're like okay it's 40 miles I can start wrapping my mind around 40 miles is a ride I can do easily blah 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 you start mentally
Yeah.
tricking yourself into smelling the barn
Yep.
um, and on an event like XL you just have multiples of those you're out there for a long time so
Right.
um,
I'm kind of
yeah.
wrestling with this idea of not having my odometer um, on the main screen,
Mm-hmm.
because I've done some big like prep rides, and it's weird. Like when you start watching mileage, that's not a good. My whole cycling journey, I would say I've been really into climbing, and I focus a lot on elevation gain. And so
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of years where I would do a million. a million plus feet a year. And so you just focus on elevation.
Yeah.
And I never even cared about mileage, But then now flipping the script this year, it's the first year where I'm not doing crazy elevation and I'm putting in more miles. You start to realize like, oh man, these miles, they really tick off awful slow, especially when you're in a headwind and you're maybe, 150 miles into something,
Yep.
you don't want to be looking at that thing. It's kind of demoralizing.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. But I'm going to try to take this approach of, you know, it's easy to say now, but I'm going to try to be in, gratitude mode, you know,
Hmm.
just feeling grateful for that I'm at this event and I'm able to do it. I got the support of my family and I'm out there, doing the thing I love. And I'm going to try to keep that kind of mindset, but
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll get dark at times, but
Yeah. Well, and I
it's
mean,
just,
it's ultimately that was when I was racing Unbound quite a bit. I would always think, you know, I've done the training and I've made the sacrifices and I've, done all that sort of stuff, but it's not just me. It's
yeah,
other people that have also sacrificed
for
when
sure.
I've been like, well, I'm going to go do 5 hours, 6 hours on the bike or whatever. And, somebody else has to parent the kids when you're doing that, or somebody else has to pay attention to the business. So I
Yeah.
always felt that not pressure necessarily, but as you say, gratitude or respect for what other people had done that allowed me to be in that spot,
Yeah.
and keep pedaling. So, um, in some ways, it's when you get to the event and you're just riding your bike, that's the easy part.
Yeah.
And um,
Did,
again,
did
it's
you did you call on any type of special inspiration? Did you have anything that you ever put on your bike or anything like that where it's like something just to kind of mentally get you kind of recentered or
not in a physical talisman sort of way,
hmm
but it was always um present to me that having at that point, I owned the bike shop that I worked at, and
hmm
I was part of so many other people's journeys that were also doing Unbound or other events that it really kind of felt freeing in that moment. I mean, I always just would remind myself, look, if you got up tomorrow and had your druthers to do whatever you wanted, you would want to ride your bike all day. That's what you
hmm
would want to do,
Yep.
and be free from whatever responsibility was at work or whatever. And so in that moment, you're out there and you're like, you wished for this. This is what you wanted. Um,
Yeah, you paid for it
and
too.
yeah, you signed up to do hard things.
Yeah,
So rise to the challenge and get it done. So
right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I am really looking forward to it. And I had there's a team that I work for Giant. And so
Mm-hmm.
we sponsor this team out in Sacramento. It's called the Enjoy Cycling Club.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the guy on who founded the club, Vince Murdoch, and he did the XL last year. And so we had him on the podcast, and I was kind of giving him crap because we know each other or whatever. And I was like, oh, so 200 miles is not enough. You're just going to sign up for 350. What kind of lunatic does something like this? And he says, this is what got me. He says, well, he's like, I've done 200 miles. I'm sure you have too, but I've never done 350. And he says, I wanted to sign up for something I didn't know if I could finish.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to do. And
Yep.
then you know, that just my kooky brain, that's
Yep.
what happened. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to do it. I didn't say that on the podcast, but that really resonated with me. So, and then it's the kind of thing like where you sign up and it's a lottery. So you don't even really know. But then when that email came, and my heart just kind of like you can't control the reaction that you have. So I got
Yeah.
the email and my heart just kind of sank. It's like, oh no, okay,
Yeah.
I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm super excited and it's a big, crazy, hard thing. And I love stuff like that. So
Yeah.
that's gonna
You
be
know,
good.
I I love that about every distance at Unbound, because I for a long time when I was working in the shop, I I would always think of 200 miles of gravel as being like, for runners. Runners get up on January 1 and wherever they are, maybe they're running 5Ks or 10Ks or half marathons or whatever, but the big totem out there is the marathon. And they get up on January 1 and they're like, this is the year I'm going to run a marathon, because it scares them and they don't know if they can do it.
Right.
And it seems like an insurmountable obstacle. And so they get serious about their training. They buy new shoes, they get on a nutrition plan, they get all the things in place, right? And
Yep.
as somebody that was selling bicycles, there was never anything like that. I don't think on the bicycle side of things. Go ride your bike 100 miles on the road. Sure, it sounds like
Mm-hmm.
a big effort, but it it's not that huge, right?
Right. Yeah.
But riding your bike 200 miles or riding your bike 350 miles of gravel, or even if you're just starting out and 25 or 50 miles seems insurmountable, it's those folks that I've always said that in any field, there's probably 10% of people that are going for the win, and then 90% of them are there to see if they can fucking make it.
Right.
And those folks have the same shared experience, the same stories. They're probably working 40, 50, 60 hours a week and fitting in training around family responsibilities and, church and all these other things. And they're
Yep.
still out there getting it done. So um, I've always felt a kinship with the 90% that we're just trying to get it done. And we're scared shitless, honestly, when that email comes and says, okay, you're in,
Right.
and they're like,
Right.
oh, what do I do now? Oh
Uh,
no, this is, and
I shouldn't have
it's,
had that donut yesterday.
yeah, it's good. It's good to sign up for stuff that scares you,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I agree.
motivation.
Yeah, there's this guy I follow online. It's Jesse Seitzler. You know,
Okay.
have you
I don't know.
ever? He posted this thing about misogi. And so the idea with the misogi is that every year you put something on the calendar that scares the hell out of you, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like a hard thing that you have to think about every day to in preparation and then leading up to it. And you should do one misogi every year.
Mm-hmm.
And love that concept. I just
Yeah.
found out about it. So I'm thinking like, okay, well, this year Unbound XL, who knows next year, but we'll see how this one goes. Yeah, I think Vince also shared with me about his experience where a lot of the guys that came out, he says, I got sucked into going too fast, too early.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's just on the rivet right out of the gate. And he said, and a lot of those people didn't even finish.
Yep.
And he says, so he was trying to give me the advice of just like, it'll sort itself out. It's 350 miles.
Yep.
Just don't get uncomfortable early because you got a long way to go. So,
Yeah, and there's not a lot of opportunity if you burn all those matches. I mean, it's dissimilar from an event like Leadville, where if you're from the flatlands and you go too deep on some low oxygen, high altitude climb, there's really no recovery. I mean, you can recover a little bit over the
mhm.
course of 350 miles, but there's only so many calories you can shove down your throat,
Yeah,
and get back from a deficit early in the race. So I know that when I finished it, when the first year, the year I DQ'd or quit, um, we were going like bats out of hell to the first checkpoint, and I remember being more tired at the first checkpoint than I'd ever been on a bike, and that was a bad sign.
yeah,
So easing your way into it, staying true to what your pacing can be, and probably not looking at how much more you've got to do is a good
right.
mental place to be.
Yeah, it's got to be tempting to try to latch on, and get in a group. Um, so that's going to be something you're going to have to just balance out at
Yep.
the as it goes.
Yep.
So let's talk about the your induction into the Gravel Hall of Fame.
Sure.
That's it's a relatively new Hall of Fame,
Yep.
and getting inducted is a tremendous honor. What was that like for you?
Well, I mean, I would have to say that I don't. The people that are in the Hall of Fame at this point, and I think we're on maybe the fifth. This will be the fifth year.
Hmm.
We're probably up to close to 20 people. Um, the the people that are in the Hall of Fame at this point, whether they're Rebecca Rush or Joel Dyke or Linda Garrett, Nick Legan. I mean, Ted King is going in this year. Those individuals, I think of as being kind of the apex of what they do, right? And I don't. My induction into the hall, especially being in the first class, was humbling for sure because I looked around at the people that were in there with me, And I
Mhm.
thought, these people have really done something. I mean, all I did was ride my bike and give input when asked about stuff. But as a pioneer, I mean, I guess at some level, at some level, I think there was a small amount of inspiration on my part, in the sense that I'm sure there were many, many people that looked at me and said, if that fat schlub can do 200 miles, then I can do 200 miles. So by some sort of proxy, I was a motivator and a leader for people that thought, if he can do it, I can do it. But no, I mean, the people that are in there are all stalwarts of the scene that you know when you start with 34 people at the first DK Unbound, and now you have 4,000, it's obvious that there's something about riding gravel that speaks to a wide swath of the population. And so the thing I love about the hall is that there are people, and I hope this continues to be the case, there are people that are in there who are getting their stories told that might be lost to history if we didn't tell them.
Right.
A great
Yeah.
example, from this year would be a guy named John Hobbs, who John is a guy from Wichita or Central Kansas. And 10 years before there was a DK 200, he did the Flint Hills Death Ride, which, ominous name,
Hmm.
but it was all mountain bikes, but on the same roads that Unbound treads on today. And he would get fields of 300-400 people, very grassroots, but it was a launching pad for lots of people to experience this part of the country and understand that gravel is ostensibly maybe safer than the road, but also explore what's over the horizon. So I can every time there's a podcast somewhere where somebody says, "Well, gravel started in 2016 when Ted King came to Unbound for the first time." I kind of chortle a little bit, and I think, okay,
Sure.
I get it, I get it. But far be it from me to say that gravel started in 2006 when the first Unbound happened, because there have been people riding these roads and having that same thirst for exploration and map finding, and going home and looking at a map and being like, oh, I wonder where this road goes, all
Yeah.
those things. And I worry that those stories get lost altogether if we don't tell them. So
Yeah.
my hope for the hall is that every year there's a chorus of voices that ask, well, why is this person getting inducted, and so on and so forth. But a lot of it comes down to us as the graveling public, if you will, being willing and able to write these nominations and lift up those people whose stories haven't been told. And certainly, everybody knows who Ted King is. Everybody knows who Amanda Nauman is.
Yeah.
Um, but there are people that have been instrumental in getting us to where we are today that need to be recognized. So
For
to even
sure.
be tangentially in their orbit is a huge accolade for me, and one that I don't necessarily wear uh, knowingly.
I could tell you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. The way you, yeah, you're pretty self-deprecating, but
Well,
I mean, hey, I mean, you belong there, obviously. And one of the things that I love about going to any Hall of Fame are those early stories.
mhm.
It is the history of whatever it is that you're there for the hall to appreciate. I went to the Basketball Hall of Fame. We have the Marin Mountain Bike Hall of Fame here in
Yep,
Fairfax. And I'm a cycling junkie, and I learn all kinds of things when I go to that museum.
yeah,
And yeah, it's a big part of that experience for people that are going to attend the Hall of Fame. And
yep,
yeah, and it's a great way to keep track of the history.
yeah.
Because like you
And it's
said, if it's not told, then it could just get lost in the shuffle,
yep,
before anybody was covering it, you
yep.
know. So yeah, so let's talk about the your life in the bike industry. So you grew up working at a shop, is that right?
Yeah. So I was living in Colorado with my mom, and she single mom. I was born in Wisconsin. At about age 5, she parked me with my grandmother for 3 weeks one summer. She was a school teacher. She went
Hmm.
out and did a big lap of all the Western states and came back and said, "We're selling it. We're selling all our stuff. We're moving to Colorado." And so we
Wow.
moved to the Western slope of Colorado, and we were there for a decade or more. And she met a guy named Jim, who would eventually become my stepdad, my father figure for the last 50 years. And he lived in Kansas. And so, born and raised in Lawrence, Kansas, where the university is. Well,
Hmm.
the University of Kansas is. Um, and so we moved back to Kansas. And Jim was a Hallmark Cards artist for the entirety of his career. He's a very gifted artist, and but he had a store in Lawrence that he loved called Sunflower Surplus, and Sunflower Surplus was one of many, I'm sure, Army Navy surplus stores that popped up in the early '70s, and this one just happened to be housed in a historic Italianate building from 1865 in downtown Lawrence. And I won't bore anybody with the history of Lawrence, but Lawrence is a very progressive city. Was founded on very progressive ideals at the time of the Civil War. Um, but he took us in there, and um, I, as a 14-year-old child, thought a gas mask was like the coolest thing you could have. So
Yeah.
it's a surplus store. I bought a gas mask. I probably went out and had way too many shenanigans with that thing. But when I came back to KU to go to school, uh, Sunflower had broadened their offerings to include really anything that was designed for self-propulsion in Kansas. So they did bicycles and they did backpacks and they did canoes and they did sailboards. And Kansas isn't really there's no mountains, there's no navigable rivers really. You've got to make do with what's around you. So sometimes that means going out to the Corps of Engineers reservoir and paddling your canoe across it and then riding a mountain bike around it. And they're different experiences, but it's all in the same place,
Hmm.
as distinct from, I imagine, some place like Boulder, where if you're going to go rock climbing, you go to the rock climbing place. If you're going to mountain biking, go to the mountain biking place. So long story short, I came to KU. I was getting my degree in anthropology after bouncing around through a bunch of different majors. Anthropology was the quickest way out the door. But in the meantime, I was working at Sunflower and having a great time putting bikes under people and boots on their feet and backpacks on their backs. And so I started there in 1989 and eventually became the bike shop manager, and then eventually became the general manager. And then at some point, the Milsteins, who had founded it, said, "Well, we're not going to do this for another 25 years." And their children, quite wisely, were not interested in retail. And
Uh-huh.
so my wife and I, Carla and I, bought it in 2001 and ran it for the next 20 years. And the thing I loved most about the job was the connection to the people and
Yeah.
getting to hear, building my stoke off of their adventures, and then hopefully doing the same for them as they were going out and, doing anything that was out of doors. So
Yeah.
the business is now, let's see here, it's 53 years old now, which is kind of a modern miracle.
Yeah.
And over the years, the surplus went away. It became a Sunflower Outdoor and Bike Shop. Half the business is outdoor goods like Patagonia, North Face, all the things you might see in a mountain town. And then
Yeah.
the other half is a bike shop, which for a long, long time carried Trek and Specialized bicycles, which again is not something that happens
Very
anymore.
tough. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we were just fortunate to have a great crew of people there that would advance the brand and connect with people, and then a great community in Lawrence that would support something like that, because
Yeah.
that's tougher and tougher and tougher. So yeah, Carla and I ran the show there for, as I say, a long, long time. And then COVID hit, and obviously our union came apart. I mean, our union within Sunflower didn't come apart, but our personal one did.
Hmm.
And that added some tumult to keeping our eyes on the prize of, I'm sure in your role, as in Colin's role, you're in touch
Yeah.
with many, many retailers on a day-to-day basis, and it's a full-time job. It's you
Yeah.
got to keep laser focus all the time.
Yep.
So we went through a period where we didn't have laser focus, and then COVID came around, and it was a business that was in crisis without a leader, if I'm being honest, in myself that was full of energy for doing it, you know? And
Hmm.
so, very fortunately, our single best customer of all time came in and had a deep seated love for the place and was a man of vision and of money and really has advanced the business beyond where Carla and I ever could have taken it. And the bike business at the moment is pretty interesting to say the least.
That's
But
one way to put it.
yeah,
Yeah.
um, but Sunflower, as it stands today, has a full bore restaurant inside of it. It's still a bike shop. It's still an outdoor shop. There's an event space there. He's really transformed the buildings that were,
It's like a
very
museum
historic.
of sorts, right?
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
certainly the chamois sniffing period of my life where I've chased a lot of autographs in my day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a rich history because it's been around for 50 something years and been part of that community. So
Yeah.
um, a couple years ago, well, almost 2 years ago now, maybe 18 months. Um, I was just at a point with Sunflower where I don't know that I was helping very much. And Matt and I had a conversation, and we decided that maybe I should help somebody else. And quite fortunately, friends at Lifetime said, "Look, we have this copywriting position that we would like to backfill. You'd be working with a shared services team that helps out on all the various 30 events that Lifetime owns across the country, whether it be the Chicago Spring Half Marathon, which was just this last weekend, or
Mhm.
Unbound, which is coming up in a couple of weeks, or Leadville, or um, Miami
Sea
Marathon
Otter.
unit. Yep, Sea
Yeah.
Otter for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and then they said, we know you're kind of handy with a camera. So maybe we can have you write some things and take some pictures. And the official title is content specialist, although I like to pronounce it content specialist.
Okay.
Um, from the standpoint that when I was at Sunflower, being the brand manager of that brand and getting to tell the story of that brand and the story of our customers was what I love to do the most. It was way more fun than figuring out what margin some product should be and stressing
Yeah.
about whether or not we were going to hit our preseason number, all the things that go with being a successful business person. So yeah, I've been in that role with Lifetime for a little over a year now, and it's afforded me the opportunity to last year at Unbound, I was the photographer for the men's elite race, and so I'm in a Jeep in front of the men's field, leaning out the window with a camera, and I've got a front row seat to Keegan Swenson versus Matthew Mahorich versus Lachlan Morton versus
Yeah.
whomever, and when I was racing my bike a lot, that was it was fun to win, but it was also fun to be in the moment when the story was happening, right?
Right.
To see Cameron Chambers right off the front, or to see Yuri sneak his way through the muddy sections and eke out a sprint win that was one for the ages. So being in that position and being able to see it and still be part of it, even though physically no way I could be part of that anymore.
Hmm.
It's hugely gratifying, and I'm ultra thankful. So yeah,
So
that's
content makes a lot of sense when
yeah,
you put it
yeah,
that way, you know?
yeah, for
And who
sure.
better really to capture those images than someone who's been right there when the story's unfolding yourself, you
Yeah,
know?
I mean,
So
I do feel like having done the events, and I have 4 Leadville finishes and I have all these Unbound finishes, and um yeah, there's certainly there's a modicum of understanding of when the pain face is going to come on and when the story is going to be told. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
doesn't hurt that the last 2 years, Paulina has been fortunate enough to have Lachlan Morton stay with her while
Oh,
he's in town.
hmm.
And so, yeah, she's a bit of a fangirl when it comes to Lackey, but
I think
You know,
everybody is. You
yeah,
know, it seems like he's one of the most universally loved cyclists out there.
yep,
He's got a place here in NorCal, in
hmm,
Auburn, and he attends a lot of the local events. And yeah, he's just a cool character, man.
yeah.
And he's done some amazing things.
Yeah. Last year, after P pulled out of the XL, we drove back to Emporia, and we got back to town about 4 a.m. And she was knackered. She was dead tired.
Yeah.
And I was like, baby, I got to go to work. I mean, I've been out all night covering the XL, but the race starts in 2 hours. You might as well just drop me off at the office. So
Oh,
she dropped
wow.
me off at the office, and she drove the car home. She pulled up in front of her own house, and the lights were all off. Lackland's room was dark. And so she slept in the car so as to not disturb him
Oh,
in his
wow.
preparation for the race. And when the lights came on, and Tom, his right hand person, was when it was apparent that they were awake, she skulked into her own home and went and got in her bed after her massive effort.
Right.
And after Lackland won, and I hope he doesn't mind me telling this story, but after Lackland won, he was so gracious in hanging out in downtown Emporia and having a beer with the locals, and as we all know, a very affable sort.
Yeah.
And I hope I can count him as a friend. But uh,
Yeah.
I told him that story, and Paulina was right there, and he laughed and laughed, and then he said, "Kind of worked out though." So yeah,
Oh, man.
we're
Yeah.
we're anxious to welcome him back to the house
Oh, I bet.
this year, so it'll be a good time.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty funny. Yeah. Well, definitely in the moment, right? You
Yep,
know?
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's been it's quite a career you've had in the bike business, both as a racer and then running a shop and then ultimately owning it, and now as a photographer for Lifetime. It seems like seems pretty
Pretty
dreamy.
good. Pretty
Yeah.
good. Pretty good.
Pretty
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So are you thinking that this Lifetime thing, like you really found a home here? Because I mean, I've been looking at all these photos. I mean, the photos are amazing, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Fantastic
Thank you.
photography. Yeah.
Thank you.
And do you feel like you found your calling after all these years, and this is what you plan on doing there till you retire, or you still got other things you want to accomplish?
um, I'm always interested in telling the stories. I mean, and
Uh-huh.
I know that what I do with a Lifetime is there are opportunities there to tell bigger stories, and I hope that. I mean, that would be something that would scare the shit out of me, quite honestly.
Hmm.
Is to undertake a big story.
Sounds like it's what you want
So
to do.
yeah, yeah,
Right? You like
and
to sign up for stuff that scares the shit out of you.
yeah, exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
and you know, I've always been. I mean, I've been a retailer longer than I've been anything else, but I feel like people skills is part of that. That's a big
Oh
part of
yeah.
that job.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm more than happy to see where this takes me, and it affords me the opportunity, as I said, to be in the crucible of what's going on.
Yeah.
At Sea Otter, for example, you know, for whatever reason, Lifetime has decided that I should be the Lifetime Grand Prix photographer this year. So I get to go to
Yeah.
all the Grand Prix events, and I hope to
Awesome.
do that. I hope to do that job justice. But one of the assignments at Sea Otter was to take the portraits of all of the athletes for their trading card or the poster or whatever. It's the media day, right? Come in, take your photo, and off you go.
Yeah.
And being able to be in the room with these thoroughbred athletes who are what they can do on a bike is amazing.
It is.
But they're still people, right? And so they come in, and you're not retailing them necessarily, but you're cracking their shell open and you're getting them talking. And
Yeah.
that's what I did for 35 years at Sunflowers. So it's similar and yet different enough to keep me enthused about it for sure.
Hmm. What percentage of these athletes did they know who you are? Does like everyone know, like, oh shit, there's Dan? Or is it more like, who's this photographer dude, man?
Well, it's funny that I was just at an event. So the last few years, I've been fortunate enough that Andy Chastain and Lauren Pickman down in Bentonville, Arkansas, have asked me to come down and shoot pictures at Rule of Three, which is a grassroots event down there that is getting big. And the transition from people saying, "Oh, hey, that's Dan Hughes. He's the four-time winner of DK,"
Yeah.
uh, to "Oh, that's Dan Hughes, the photographer." That's I don't feel like I should really wear either one of those hats. I feel like my DK wins came at a time when it was a different. It's not in the same league as what happens now, and I don't think my photography is in the same league as other photographers. I don't. I'm always learning and trying to get better and steal ideas. So,
Hmm.
um,
Interesting.
yeah, I mean, it's interesting to have people come up and say, I love your photos." Um, it's gratifying in a number of ways, but it's a work in progress, as all things are in my life. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Interesting. That's an interesting way to look at it. One of the things I can't help but think, with all the, I don't know if you could call it success, I guess, but it seems like there's really a market for, documentary type of cycling, like Unchained to me, like I love Unchained. I was really
yep,
disappointed to hear that it's not happening this year. They've done their last one. I hope somebody else will pick the ball up and run with it though, and continue on because I can't get enough of it. And
yeah,
there's been other ones like The Least Expected Day. I don't know if you ever saw that one with Movistar, and
yep,
Dick Cannondale has one,
yeah,
Jumbo Visma. So you got to believe that there is a grand opportunity with the characters in Unbound
yep,
and the gravel scene in general. That could be a fantastic documentary. And hey, who better to do it than maybe
yeah.
four-time winner of Unbound? Likes to scare the shit out of himself.
That could be a big one.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, we'll just tease everybody with that. So, yeah. Well, all right, Dan. Well, listen, I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast and sharing your story with us. And I'm looking forward to. I hope maybe I'll meet you here
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Look me
in a
up.
couple of
I'll
weeks
be
or
around.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If there's
yeah.
anything you need in Emporia, just holler. I'm happy to help.
All right. Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And yeah, thanks so much. And we'll all be watching. What let me let's put out your Instagram handle so everybody else can enjoy the photos also. Is
Sure.
it? Yeah.
Yep. I'm at D Hughes 101. So that's DHUGHES 101. It's a black and white photo of the profile pic is a black and white photo of me looking like a convict
Yeah.
with helmet hair and the whole
Uh,
bit.
it's a
So
gritty photo for sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And do you do
um,
anything on YouTube or any of the other
no,
channels?
I need to yeah, broaden my game for sure. But again, having been born in 1845,
You're
I'm
doing
just
quite well.
I'm just now learning that there's a steam engine, and
Uh-huh.
I send most of my missives by telegraph. So I'll get there eventually. But yeah,
Oh man. Yeah, Dan,
and
it's
right,
been a
and
yeah.
I have this. I have to say, I'm a little. I need to do some serious work on my Zoom background. Having sat here with you, you've got the greats back there of Freddie and
Uh,
Eddie,
Freddie and
and
Eddie. Yep.
yeah, yeah, and
Yep.
your Picasso inspired horned bull on the wall and the
Yeah.
numbers.
Yeah. Do you know
Yeah,
this one here?
is that Beryl? Who is that?
Tara Giannis.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So Tara, unfortunately suffered a spinal cord injury, but prior to
yeah.
that, she was a national champ, mountain bike racer, and she raced for Giant for years, and
Hmm.
we became friends, and then the accident happened, and we ended up putting on a series of charity events in her honor,
Hmm.
and she ultimately got really involved and helped out with the events, and it was really a lot of fun. We did seven of them,
Nice.
but yeah, and then I don't know if you can't see it, but right up here, this is my Schwinn uh, service specialist.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it's actually it's got like holes in it from I don't know, just age.
Yeah.
It's on parchment, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. And then up above there, there's a bicycles
Dude,
sign
that's
there.
super
Yeah. Oh,
cool.
and a little track bike,
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, I had tried to have some fun with it, but it's still the studio needs a lot of work. The studio slash garage. Yeah.
Yeah. All of my accoutrement in that regard has been conscripted to so I moved to Emporia just recently, and I won't take up too much more of your
Okay.
time, but I moved to
Yeah.
Emporia, and Paulina and I had to find a house that would hold all of our bicycles. And the problem is that Paulina has too many bicycles. She has
Oh,
five. She has
wow.
five. She has
Okay.
a hardtail mountain bike, a dual suspension mountain bike, a gravel bike, uh, her town bike, a road bike, and I won't even ding her for her half of the tandem. So she's got five bikes. And so
Okay.
when we were shopping for a place, I figured we needed room for 32 bikes. But her five are the problem. I think that's
Oh,
what we need to.
okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. My 27
Yeah,
after
not a problem.
34. No, after 34 years in the industry, that's just totally normal.
Yeah, you're
Um,
behind actually.
yeah,
You
yeah.
should have more.
One a year.
Yes.
Um, so when we moved in here, I had all of my memorabilia and all the things that I collected over the years. And you're going to have to come by the house when you come to Emporia
Oh,
because,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Sounds like it.
But all of my trophies are conscripted to the downstairs basement bathroom here. So,
It's
yeah,
man cave.
yeah, yeah. I didn't feel like I could do the podcast from the bathroom though. It has a suitable backdrop, but I just didn't. The
Uh-huh.
acoustics are terrible. So
Yeah.
anyway, come
Could be
by and I'll give
convenient
it to
depending,
her. Very true. Yeah, if I belabor this any longer, one of the two of us is going to have a nature break. So
Yeah.
anyway, we'll cut
Yeah.
it short before then.
Awesome. All right. Well, hey, thanks so much, Dan. Appreciate it. And
Yep,
I'll look for you in the next 10 days or so.
sounds
Yeah.
good. Look
Awesome.
forward to
Thanks for
seeing you.
listening, everybody. All right. Take care. If you like what we're doing here at Cyclejerks Podcast and you would like to support us, please check out our website at cyclejerkspodcast.buzzsprout.com. Hit the subscribe button. We shout out all subscribers, so get on it. Another way you can support the podcast would be by giving us a 5-star review on whatever streaming platform that you're listening on. We appreciate you. Thanks so much.
Cycle Jerks.
Hey, get out of the road, dummy.
Cycle Jerks Podcast.